Next up, item number 5 on the agenda is a presentation. We have Chief Mike Solwald and Police Department recognition for outstanding service. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, citizens. Family. I want to start by saying how proud I am of the Oxford Police Department, especially in these last couple of years. In 2020, our downtown was ready to undergo a total reconstruction of M24 through town, which was going to take a majority of the year to complete. Add on a worldwide pandemic that began to make many people sick and or die. Tack on unrest and uncertainty in the world, which would create protests and violence and unpopular police. Oxford then had the unthinkable happen when an active shooter took the lives of our kids and injured others. Our officers responded on that day, as well as stretching themselves thin in the aftermath to help our families and kids start the healing process and get back to school. Through these last couple of years, our officers came to work every day, took on every challenge, and I never heard one complaint. Proud of you guys. Through these tough times, this is how heroes are born. And it's important that we recognize the officers when they do outstanding service. For instance, we're going to start with Tim Ellis. Tim Ellis, if you want to come on up here. Officer Ellis was called to assist the Chief of Lake Orion Police Department. Upon arriving in Lake Orion, the male subject involved in his domestic had allegedly chased his fiancée into a bathroom with a machete. Officer Ellis observed that the machete had blood on it, as well as on the male subject's hands. The Lake Orion Police Chief and Officer Ellis held her responsible until a Lake Orion officer arrived to apply handcuffs and place the subject into custody and patrol unit. After a short period, the subject had somehow escaped the back of a patrol unit and slipped off a cuff. Officer Ellis then wrestled the responsible to the ground to secure the other cuff. Once placed in the patrol car, the subject continued to attempt to slip off the cuffs and bash his head against the divider in the patrol car. During the struggle, Officer Ellis sustained a laceration to his right finger, as well as injuring his knee and shoulder. Orion Fire arrived on scene to render aid to everyone involved, as the scene was now secure. Thanks, Officer Ellis. The Oxford Police Department awards Officer Tim Ellis for his outstanding and professional actions. Congratulations. I'm used to this. You don't trip on it. Chuck's board. That's it. Officer Irish. Calm down. To the next one.
Oh, there I am going to trip on the cord.
You did after you were warned too.
Sorry about that.
Chuck, you're losing time when you're talking to. This unit citation is awarded to Officer James Irish in recognition for his actions involving traffic safety. Since joining the Oxford Police Department in 2020, Officer Irish has taken a strong approach in traffic safety. Daily, over 40,000 vehicles travel through Oxford for business, pleasure, commercial, or even home. It is our job to make sure travel is safe, no matter what the reason is for travel. Between 2020 and the end of 2021, Officer Irish stopped 3,183 violations, made 99 misdemeanor/felony arrests, and took 48 drunk/drugged drivers off the street, potentially saving many lives. Officer Irish has also been recognized for the MAD Award in 2020 and will be awarded again in 2021. So far this year for 2022, Officer Irish has already stopped 313 violations, has made 11 misdemeanor/felony arrests, and have taken 8 drunk-drugged drivers off the street. This is very impressive. The Oxford Police Department awards Officer James Irish for his outstanding and professional action. them out in the hallway though. And that concludes my time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thanks for your service.
I'm cleaning out the room now.
Thank you. Yep. We're not offended.
Kind of scared to drive out of town.
Should be.
It's okay, all the cops are busy.
Yeah. Right now is a good time to make your exit. Okay. Item 6 on our agenda this evening is a public hearing. The first proposed ordinance that we'd like to hear public comment on is the rental registration ordinance. So this is posted online. It's in the agenda materials for anyone who wanted to take a look at it. I just wanted to point out that it is for registration only at this point. Council can take up action on this matter later on in the agenda, potentially take a vote on whether it would like to move forward with the rental registration ordinance or not. So now is the time where we'd like to hear public comment. Whatever you'd like to say, just keep in mind that's for registration. In the past, council has spoke about possibly looking into a rental inspection component of rental registration and then inspection. At this time, for this public hearing, we're just considering the registration aspect. So it is initially voluntary, and we would expect that any property owners that have rental units in the village reach out. The village will be sending out communication, and there's some basic information that we're looking for each property, including landlord information and size of the rental units. And then essentially that's about it. Mr. Davis, do you want to add anything?
No fee for the registration.
No fee, right, yep, so there's no fee to register. Right, thanks. Okay, anyone wishing to speak under this public hearing, feel free to approach the podium and state your name, and if you'd like to, you can state your address as well. Any takers? Absolutely, sir.
See if I can manage not to trip on my own lawyers here. So my name is Chuck Snyder. I used to live in Hadley, but now I live in Ortonville. I came to this town in 1999. I've gotten 15 beautification awards. I own 19 buildings. I have over 200 parking spaces that are privately owned by me. And I have 37 tenants. Of your 125 businesses you have, 37 of those people are in my buildings. So I feel that I have a sufficient knowledge, being here 20-some years, and a big enough investment. If you want to know what taxes I pay, I just did my income tax. I pay $96,000 a year in taxes. What do I get for $96,000 a year? Not a hell of a lot. I plow my own snow, I cut my own grass, I provide my own parking, I haul my own trash. So what am I getting from you? Not much. So I think the whole objective is to work together. I read this ordinance. I don't have the remotest clue what you're trying to do here. We went through this last year. It was turned down, and now it's back. That isn't good. It isn't good because this stuff is done in a dark room. No one said, hey, we're gonna look at this again, Chuck. Do you wanna kind of give us some input? You know, one of the things I learned at Ford Motor Company after 35 years from a guy named Edsel Ford, I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, but I gotta have smart people around me. That was his philosophy. He went to Babson College. I don't even know where the hell Babson College is. But he was a good people person, and he took the position. Chuck, I don't have to be smart. That's why I have people like you that work for me. Well, I use the same philosophy, and I'm telling you that should be your philosophy. How many times have you talked to a store owner, a property owner, a building owner, a developer to get input from them on anything you do? Never. You think you know a lot because you're on the council? Well, you don't. How many people spend time in this town? How many people, you get up in the morning, you have breakfast, you get your kids off to school, you go to work, you come home, you have dinner, you watch TV, that's it. You don't deal with the traffic. You don't deal with all the problems. You don't deal with the snow. You deal with nothing. So what I'm saying, now you're trying to put more complexity in the system. You can't even handle what you got right now. You got ordinances that aren't being enforced. You want me to give you examples? I'll give you lots of examples. You're not even open on Friday. Why aren't we open on Friday? Don't we conduct business on Friday? Give me an example. On this January the 20th, I turned in a lot split request. Got it time stamped. Didn't hear a boo. On February the 2nd, I paid a fee, $350, to have the planner look at my proposal. 3 weeks, not 3 days, 3 weeks later, I don't even get a response from them. I get nothing. I get a letter from Joe Madore that says, hey, they gave me a letter and said this and that, boomity boom. Hey, I didn't ask Joe Madore to do this. I paid $350 to the planner to give me a written response. I got no written response. And Joe says, well, they're busy with marijuana stuff. Well, we didn't hire this guy, the planner. We hired this company. And if he's busy, get somebody to help him. That's not my problem. Their problem is to do stuff on a timely basis. Is a week a lot? I can read the damn thing in 30 minutes. So that's a little bit of a segue, but what I'm trying to say, if you think that we're in a perfect world here, you are confused. We are not. We got more problems, and I look at your agenda, and I look at the minutes of your meeting as far as what goals you've set. You are not even on the same planet. The things you got in your agenda and the things that you have on your objectives for Joe, they don't talk to the issues. There are issues that business owners, property owners, developers like me need to get handled, and they're not being addressed. They're not even on your to-do list. So this is just another example where we're going to have more red tape that goes nowhere. Because, Madam Chairman, I'd like you to explain to me what exactly we're trying to accomplish here. Because this differentiation between a renter and a homeowner is BS. That's the same person, whether he's renting or whether he's a homeowner. He's the same person that get burned alive or whatever. And why, on the way, I don't know, was this guy here, Dean from the newspaper?
Talk to the board, not me, man.
Huh?
Talk to the board, not me.
I can't hear you, buddy.
Talk to
me,
the board, not him. Talk to us. He
Oh.
wants you to talk to us.
Okay. Well, if he's the guy, I gotta tell you, amen for him. Because this is the first time in 20 years, don't overstate, in 20 years, that someone has taken the initiative to actually put in the paper what the hell is going on with the council. This is a tremendous, tremendous step forward. And I don't know if you people encouraged him to do this, he did it on his own or what, but this is what I'm talking about, communication. Communication with the people out there and letting them know what the hell is going on the council, on the DDA, on the planning commission. This is really, really a big step. Because one of our problems is the lack of communication and the lack of coordination. There is no freaking coordination between DDA, planning commission, and council. And I talk from experience. I was on the DDA here for 4 years, and simultaneously I was on the DDA in Lake Orion for 8 years. I was there 8 years and here only 4, because we didn't know what the shit we were doing. We had the dumb people outvoting the smart people. And in Lake Orion, in 8 years, we did a lot. We had a whole lot of good projects that we did, and here we couldn't get anything off the ground. It just, everything got stymied. No coordination, no agreement. We had 2 different factions. Finally, after they decided to spend $52,000 on a study that I could have saved them a little money on, it was time to go, because we clearly were not on the same page. Because you know where that study is? No one knows where that study is. Did anything ever happen with it? No. So all I'm suggesting to you, this is a long preamble. I'm way over my 5 minutes and I haven't talked about the subject. But I'm just trying to set the stage with you that there's a lot we can accomplish, but we're not putting it on the proper plate. We don't have things identified that can make a difference in this community. And that's what we gotta do. So let me talk about this. So I'm a pretty smart guy. I've been to college. Somebody's gotta tell me what we're trying to do here, because I don't understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. Communication is key. I'm gonna let Mr. Davis
You
explain
gotta
the.
talk loud, because I can't hear good.
I'm gonna let Mr. Davis explain the intent behind it because he was the drafter of it to make sure we get it right. So, Mr. Davis.
You know, I made Mr. Davis what he is today, you know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
He was a young attorney. And
He was
actually
never young.
He was a young attorney, and we won a case in the Michigan Supreme Court. He did a hell of a job.
So Chuck, what's going on here is through various meetings, the issue came back up.
Gotta talk up, bud.
Through various meetings,
Don't talk to me, talk to your microphone.
Those aren't microphones,
There-
it's just a recorder.
it's just
Oh,
a
it's
record.
recorder.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Chuck, let me see if I can get, so over time, the issue came back up about rental in general. And there were more than a handful of meetings where the issue was discussed. And eventually, the consensus was that we would not move forward with an inspection component. We would only go with a registration. And members of the council felt strongly that fire safety and police safety concerns raised were to know where there are tenants. It really was driven by a safety concern that the police would know when they entered a building, or the fire would know when they entered a building, if in fact the third floor was being used for tenants. Because they don't know that right now. And quite frankly, we've come close to having some significant mistakes made because of that. So the council asked that I come back with just a registration component for consideration. We've had more than 4 meetings on that particular issue with various redrafts. There was a first reading. Tonight is potentially the second reading, right? And it's a no fee. It's we've reduced the penalty provisions. We're trying to get compliance. It's basically a form you submit if you have a tenant, nothing more.
Okay, well, that's where the flaw is. Because what's the difference of whether I have a tenant on my building or I have a guest in my house? What's the difference?
In that scenario,
So, I've got people from out of town, and they're staying overnight, and so some are down in the basement where the rec room is sleeping, and some are upstairs sleeping, and some are in the living room. How's that different from somebody in an apartment?
When they come through the door, are there more locked doors they have to go through? Or can they go right to the basement?
Well, but
No, there's more locked doors. That's the difference. They have to go through another locked door to get to the people in the basement, to get to the people in the attic,
Why
to
did
find
they-
out there's somebody living in the back closet.
So why do they have to go through a locked door?
because
Because the
they're,
house is on fire.
well, what we're saying, Chuck, is that the tenant by
the house is on fire.
the tenant by the nature of the relationship leases out a space. That space is their space under the law, right? And they are allowed to secure that space as if it is their own space. And that's the difference. That's the difference between having a guest and a tenant. So the point here was just to allow fire and police safety to have knowledge where there's a tenant relationship. It really is nothing more than that.
Yeah, well, it's, I'm saying, to me, the logic isn't there, because if I'm the fire chief or a fireman, and there's a house on the fire, I'm gonna search every friggin' inch of that house, whether it's the basement, the third floor, the attic, or whatever, to see if there's a dog, a cat, a baby, a grandmother, or whoever in that house. I don't care what else it is. And distinction that just because a tenant is in the building, that's different than someone in a person's private home, that's distorted logic.
Okay. Your point has been noted. Do you have any additional points you'd like council to consider?
Say that again?
I said, council's gonna consider the point that you just made. Do you have additional points you'd like us to consider?
Do you have anything else, Chuck?
No. Just one other point to it. Well, let me just, I do have a couple points in your document if you want me to make those comments, but you have 3 things here that make no sense at all. Number 4, the principal residence of the owner, which is temporarily occupied by a person other than the owner for more than 2 years. It's okay? How can that possibly be okay?
That's one of the exceptions.
I know, you're saying that that's okay.
No, we're saying that that is not a dwelling unit for purposes of the ordinance.
Isn't that a what? It's not a dwelling unit?
It's not a
So if it's
resident,
not a dwelling unit, then it doesn't fall under your ordinance, does it?
Correct.
Right.
it's an exception. Those
That's what
are,
I'm saying, it doesn't fall under your ordinance.
right.
So a guy can move into a house with the owner in there, be living in the basement for 2 years, and that's okay. That makes no sense. And then we go further and we say, a dwelling in which a parent, child, brother, or sister of an owner is living, that's okay. Well, that's gonna be 97% of the people. Who comes back to your house to live? Your divorced daughter, your divorced son, your kids out of college, whatever, they're members of the family. They're saying that's okay. Well, who the hell do we know who they are?
Well,
Where they're living, where they're sleeping. So that's not a good one.
Are you saying that the ordinance should be more restrictive then, if these exceptions don't make sense?
So anyway, the bottom line is, I don't think you can make the arbitrary distinction that a person who's renting in a building is that different from a guest in somebody's house. And finally, some of this should be already known. If you are in a multiple zoned area, would you expect someone to be living there? It's not excluded. It's a multiple zone property. So why wouldn't you assume that there are multiple people living there? Why would that not be excluded? And how about C1 transitional? In C1 transitional zoning, you are allowed, under the ordinance, to have residential living. So why isn't that excluded? I don't have to register them. It's in the frickin' zoning. It's either gonna be a business or residence. It's allowed under the zoning. So, I could go on and on, but I'm gonna not be any more vocal than I am. I try to work with you people. I've been here 20 years. I know more than you folks forgot, believe me. And I can spell out a whole bunch of issues: snow removal, police, traffic, speed, dirt, coordination, cooperation, communication. We're lacking in all those things. And what does it mean? It affects the people who live here. Do you people have any idea how many building permits that we issued for residential in the last 6 years? How many do you think? 35.
Sir, if you have additional comments about the registration
I'm
ordinance,
just trying to tell you that the town can't grow unless we make changes. You've had one multifamily home built in 5 years for 2 units. And your population has increased in the last 10 years by 105 people. We're going nowhere. 105 people in 10 years, 1 multiple building permit, 35 houses. That's pathetic. I'm part of a deal in Rochester. I'm just a land guy. 142 units in downtown Rochester. That DDA is gonna be wallowing in money. $20 million on my property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
John wants to talk.
Okay, beat that, buddy.
You know what, why don't you tell them how many years you've been here, Tom? Forget your
That's
20.
my words, I don't want the on-the-job injuries
Okay.
here.
Tom Claycomb, I agree with everything he said. I don't have a lot to say, but I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Is there any present or past landlords on the council? No. You got one? So we got a little bit of support. Okay. This thing keeps coming back. I guess everybody knows, 2013, 16, 19, now 22. Am I wrong to believe that maybe the council represents the little people a little bit? Do they represent the village people?
I like to think I am the little people, Tom.
Do they represent the village people?
Yes.
So I think the village people have spoken 3 or 4 times already. How many times do they have to reject this?
Has this been brought to a vote before?
I'd like to ask too, how many complaints do we get, have we gotten from residential properties? Has anybody got a list? What are the violations? Any answers?
Each month, the
I
code,
can't hear very good, I got a hearing aid.
the code
and they're
enforcement
way
officer.
overrated.
I don't know if it's even on.
That's recorded.
It's not a microphone, it just records.
No, it goes to those speakers.
Pardon?
The code enforcement officer provides a report and has for years on
Okay.
violations and different types of violations. Just turn Chuck's air machine off. It'll be
I
fine.
can't hear.
The code enforcement officer
Sorry.
gives us a report every month.
How many complaints of residents, people complain in residential housing?
There have been a few of them.
How many?
A few in the last few
A
years.
few.
I've been here for
1, 2, 3,
about,
4.
Yes.
yeah, somewhere in that neck of the woods. Yes.
What, the last week, month, 5 years?
hearing one way.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look. The one was on West Burdick and it was involved renter and it involved inspections.
I got hearing aids,
So.
but I can't hear all much. So,
Well, this is more of a public comment period anyways, and public hearing, so, I mean, you're free to kind of
anyway,
get the reports.
I might be the only one in Oxford maybe that's dealt with this rental ordinance. We had one in Pontiac. And let me show you how it starts. In 05, every year you paid $100 for inspection and registration. 09 it was $200. 11 it was $300. 2012 it was $400. So the landlords got together as a group, got to Lansing, and stopped the madness. And in 13 it went down to 100, which was a year or 2 years, instead of the madness that they were going on with. So, like I say, now this has come up 13, 16, 19, 22. Is it because they get new council people all the time and they're hoping to get it through? Is that driving it? What's driving this? You getting that many complaints that it's a real big problem?
In 2019, we were discussing it still in 2020, and at that point, the pandemic hit. And at that point, we had overwhelming priorities, of course, as well as we
Yeah,
still had to
I'm sorry,
speak.
I can't hear you. All I can say is hearing is they're overrated.
We were talking about it in 2019, and then the pandemic hit in 2020. We had a million other things to do, it just kind of died. It was never turned down, it just went away with other problems.
This is from February 2020, and we, at that point,
Yeah, but I mean, why does it keep coming back? It's not that big a problem.
because our fire department is still asked for
The
it.
fire department?
Yes.
Not only do you pay extra taxes because it's a owner occupied, You wanna add all these other charges on it.
There's no charge for this town.
I know, it's
Okay.
free until they know where to send the bill.
We know where to find you.
I know, that's what I'm saying, 60 or 90 days, then they know exactly who to send the bill to. That's how that works. And a lot of these complaints sometimes might be suspicious. I'll give you my little history. I've got 3 houses that I've had for over 25 years. One of them is a 90-year-old house with an 80-year-old Michigan basement, which is a cement swimming pool under the house. So they all notoriously crack, and in wet weather, sometimes they leak. The lady knew that, moved in. In 2 or 3 weeks, or years, she was behind in her rent, big water bills, they're turning off the gas and electricity, and I'm trying to get her to pay some of the bills, so what if she's got a complaint? She's gonna call the authorities because the water leak might cause mold. So I told her, well, we'll just let your leak stop. I won't enforce it, and you can move out and everybody be happy. So she didn't move, she didn't call the authorities, and she didn't pay her bills. So you gotta be suspicious of complaints. So, that's about it.
Thank you for your
Another
comments.
3 years, it'll be back, if it don't pass this time. Because it seems to be a trend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
Anyone else like to speak on the registration ordinance for rentals? Okay. Okay. The second public hearing we have this evening is for the Stormwater Engineering Design Standard adoption. Those are just updated water detention and retention standards set forth by Oakland County for a new development primarily. Is there anyone who wishes to speak under this public hearing?
It's all right.
Okay, seeing none. We will move on to call to the public. So now is the time for council to hear any comments that the public would like to make to council. We can't necessarily answer questions, but we'd like to hear any comments that you have. If anybody would like to approach the podium, and you could state your name and address if you'd like. Thank you, Mr. Charles.
Rod Charles, I live in Oxford, Beaver Court. The house with the pond in front, the lake in back, if you know the area. I'm the DDA representative on the Oxford Township Board, by the way. That's the right way to put it, I think. At least that's what some people think. But I spend a lot of my time on DDA activities as opposed to township activities. I mean that sincerely. And it's enjoyable. I have the pleasure of having Ashley sit by me as well. So, and then once in a while, Kelsey shows up, and then once in a while, Mr. Medora shows up. So it's a lot of fun. The reason I'm here, though, is kind of what Chuck was saying about communication. So thank you, Chuck, for that, introduction for myself on communication. I'll talk a little about DDA, and then Ashley can follow up as well. But I want to talk about the trolley a little bit, and then a few things going on with the DDA, and then I'll be out of here. The trolley has been running. It's a DDA project, so it goes from Oxford to Orion. And I think we look at the theme we've been trying to accomplish this year, Stronger Together. I think it's a great example of the idea of Stronger Together, because both the Orion DDA and the Oxford DDA work really well together. And I say that a little bit surprising, because all the time I'm always willing to punch Orion in the teeth if I can, in a fun way. They're our neighbors and our friends, but it's been a great thing, and the trolley has been I guess I'd say it's been a visible sign of the success of that theme, Stronger Together. I hope everyone here has had a chance to ride the trolley, and if not, I would encourage you to do so. It's been a lot of fun. Right now it runs Thursdays, Saturdays. We're gonna run again this Friday because it's family night, and I've noticed myself that a lot of families with young kids are riding the trolley. Hindsight being 2020, I wish we'd kept track of a little bit of demographics to age and things like that, but that's why it's a pilot project. You know, things we gotta learn, like, you know, what the trolley stop's gonna be like, how many people ride it, what are the times? And going back to the communication thing here, one of the things, the big reason I came here tonight is to ask people here, and folks here as well, if you would kindly let the DDA know your thoughts on what we should do going forward. I was down in Orion last week talking to the DDA board members there, asking their thoughts. They've been very happy with it. They said business improved, more foot traffic. But we have to make some decisions going forward. Do we even continue it or do we stop? Do we run it Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Do we just do it in the summertime? You know, one of the calls I made early on was the city of Grosse Pointe. They run theirs in the summer only, for example. We ran ours in the winter because when I was doing my research and someone said, well, you can have the trolley free. I'm like, okay, we'll take it. You know, free is good. And at that point, by the way, as far as cost, originally we budgeted around $3,000 a month because we hired Noda to run the trolley. And to give credit where credit's due, Supervisor Barnett in Lower Oxford, Lake Orion, it's instinctive to say that, you know. He came up with our friend of his offered to pay the expenses up until, through June, I should say. In fact, just today we got our first bill from NODA for the driver expenses. It was $2,500 and change. And we got a check today too. So that's nice. And then Friday, our executive director, Kelly Westbrook, was meeting with somebody who was saying, well, maybe we can cover it to the end of the year. So financially, it's been a good deal so far. But you know, one of my worries is sooner or later, the trolley's gonna break down an M24, we'll fix the transmission or tires and all the normal stuff we all have with cars and trucks and houses and apartments and things like that. But I'll repeat, when you get a chance, if you kindly send an email to Kelly at the DDA with some of your thoughts. I mean, one thought would be is, do we buy the trolley? Because right now we've got it from the smart system, but maybe we buy it for a symbolic $1 or something like that. They were happy to get rid of it, I think. You know, the trolley itself is 25 years old. I found it in a garage in the city of Troy. And it's just like cleaning out your garage or your closet. Here, please take it. You know, but they were very helpful. In fact, they even made a muffler for us because they didn't have one at the time. So that's pretty cool stuff. So, no comments, which is nice. One of the things too I'll mention, since we have St. Patrick's Day coming up, I did talk with Kelly that we will extended hours on St. Patrick's Day. But we also, in our contract with notice, say that we do not give rides to people who are inebriated. So if Officer Irish is looking for something to do, please give him a call, let him know on the 17th. Okay? A couple of things, I'm not going to steal Ashley's thunder here because she's going to talk about the DD a little bit more, right, Ashley? Yes. Bylaws, working on just a few minor changes to bylaws. One of the things that we've talked about 2 times, maybe some things about who's on a committee or who's not on a committee. And the thought there is, if committee people are making recommendations and have financial considerations, they should probably be at least formally part of the committee as opposed to somebody might show up one time and we don't see them again for 6 months. That's part of the reason for having something in our bylaws about committees and a few other things, but just to give you a heads up. Another thought too, by the way, is we have this Wednesday, myself, Chief Schultz, Dorothy Johnston are meeting. We're interviewing people who would be the assistant to our DDA director, part-time assistant. That's Wednesday. We're interviewing. We moved it down to 2 candidates. Okay.
Great.
Another bullet point here. Here we go. That's Ashley's got plenty to talk about later on. I don't take any of her time.
A little bit.
A little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to stop telling her things because I need to leave. We're going to be looking at appointing another board member at some point in time, pretty soon for the DDA board. So we can talk about that next meeting. So that's it as far as DDA. As a side note, and I see Chris Olds here, the Oxford Addison Youth Assistance is having a bottle can drive. So if you get a chance, you want to get rid of cans and bottles right here by the garage, right? There's a stack there today. I took a car full over to Myers, dropped them off myself, and I got rid of a bunch of bottles, and it's kind of nice to get those out of the garage. But so March 7th till, when is that?
31st.
Pardon?
The 31st of March.
So 31st of March. So good chance to get rid of those bottles and cans that make a mess of it. Okay? That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How do you do, Chuck?
Pardon?
Never mind.
Please. Thank you. Thanks, Rod.
Okay, I got some, oops.
Hello, my name is Connie Turland. I live at 51 Pearl Street. I actually have some photos, if you don't mind. I can pass them on down, you can all see what I'm talking about. I have two complaints regarding the home at 49 Pearl Street, which is my direct neighbor. My neighbor, I believe, has some psychological problems. He believes that I have a camera in my antenna and that I am spying on him and that I work for the FBI.
Is that where these photos came from?
Well, no. And it's not new to me, let me point that out. There was an elderly woman that lived in my home before I purchased it a year ago, and he made the same accusations about her. When I moved into my home, I introduced myself to my neighbor, and his response to me was, if you and I are going to be friends, you're going to remove the antenna off the roof of your house. So I, trying to be a good neighbor and trying to make peace, actually did buy a new antenna and replaced the antenna on my house at my own expense. We got along fine for a while, and then because as many members of the village are aware, I believe drugs and other issues are involved. He has since made a turn. And now he is once again believes that I have a camera in my antenna, and he is pointing spotlights at my home in an attempt to drown out the fictitious camera. I am living in this home, and I am being shined on literally 24 hours a day. I have brought it to the attention of Joe Door. I have brought it to the attention of the village police. I have brought it to the attention of the ordinance officer. And unfortunately, the ordinance reads that a commercial building cannot light pollute a residential building. But there is nothing in the ordinance that says one residence cannot light pollute another residence. And that is my request, is can we change the wording? Can we do something to help me in my home? Can we, if he wants to light up his house like Pine Knob, that's fine, I don't care. But can he be made to direct the lights onto his own property and not affect myself and my neighbors? I actually went around to my neighborhood and got signatures from other neighborhoods that are directly, or neighbors that are directly affected, and I have those signatures as well. So this is not just me particularly picking on my neighbor, although I really do find it personally attacking. So that's one issue. The second issue is I have been advised, because of the relationship between me and my neighbor, I have been advised to put up a fence, and I am in the process of doing that. Unfortunately, Mother Nature is not on my side. The village, knowing what I'm going through, was kind enough to waive the permit fee so that I was able to, at least have a little less cost involved. I did have an officer come out and see how the lights were affecting me, and he even offered to buy me blinds. I appreciate that. I really honestly do. But it's not addressing the real problem. The fence issue, my neighbor's dogs, he has 3 170-pound mastiffs. The dog has escaped, the one dog has escaped and come onto my yard twice trying to attack my dog. I have to pay $7,000 to put a fence up to separate my yard from my neighbor. My neighbor has dog kennels that he has makeshift together with bailing twine, basically. I have pictures. His fence has fallen down on a couple of occasions, and I'm concerned because these are huge dogs. And why does he not have to fall under the same fence requirements as everyone else in the village? I don't understand. You know, I mean, I'm doing everything I can do to be a good neighbor. I'm doing everything I can do to be a good citizen. I'm asking for help. And it's not, I don't feel like my requests are going on deaf ears. I don't at all. But I feel like there's nothing being done to correct the real problem. And my only hope is to come here and bring everybody on the same page and let everybody be aware that these issues are happening. So I hope that my pictures are helpful. I hope that, you know, you can do something to help me in any way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We'll definitely discuss this with the village manager and follow back up with you. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Mark Miner. I live on 50 Pearl Street. I live kitty corner to Connie and across the street from the neighbor. We have a large picture window in our home, which is facing the neighbor's house. And what I want to address is light pollution. There is a limit to a lot of things, that being sound or noise in your neighborhood, barking dogs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no ordinance about lights in your neighborhood, which has become a problem. So I did some homework, looked at some other ordinances about that, and they have definitions of what light pollution is. I'll take a second to read this short little blurb here, okay? So, the purpose of this ordinance was to establish regulations and standards which will reduce light pollution, detrimental effect to the environment, enjoyment of the night sky, reduce and minimize lights or lighting practices which cause unnecessary illumination of adjacent properties, and correct problems of glare and light trespassing. Light trespassing, what is that? The light trespassing means light is emitted beyond the boundaries of the property. So I guess there's a difference if the light's shining on your property or up at your neighbor. I think that's pretty much black and white. There's also a measurement that you cannot, you shall not exceed 0.3 foot candles at the property line. Foot candle is a light measurement equal to 1 lumen per foot square. So, not that you can understand all those actual practical terms, but it's measurable, is my point. You can measure this, you can actually get a light meter, and you can define whether someone's in compliance or not in compliance. So,
Excuse me, Mark.
yeah.
Lori has a question.
I was wondering, you said you looked up some ordinances. I was wondering if you found, is this from any specific location?
This one is in California.
Okay. Have you found any near here?
Not so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
What city in California?
But I wish
Yeah,
I
do
would
you know what
have.
city? Do you know what city in California that was?
I
or
would,
just,
I can get back to you. I don't
if
have
you
it
would, please.
in my back pocket, but yeah. So I'm just trying to encourage the city here. Let's bring peace to this neighborhood, and we're just one of many probably that may want to take advantage of that, because who's going to stop a neighbor from flashing his light in your yard? I mean, there's no ordinance. I can do whatever I want. The guy had his car parked on a hill with his lights at your window. He'd be kind of upset about that. So anyways, my wife, Sylvia's my wife here, she gets ill at times and she has to go down into the living room and work through that. Well, this light's facing at her in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., it's on, this particular light I'm referring to is on 24/7. It never gets turned off that I can tell. So, I don't mind if he wants to illuminate his yard, that's fine. You know, that's your prerogative. But there's the word glare and light trespassing, I think, has some merit, and we need to develop something that can be enforceable. Otherwise, we're just victims to anybody who wants to do this. So that's really my long story short. I have one other comment. I'm in music. I play guitar and I sing. And having a microphone in here would be very helpful for people who can't hear that well. Because there's a lot of people who come here that are of age, right? They've lost their hearing. So it would benefit the community if we just threw a microphone that we could transfer from one person to another and speak up, and there's actually communication going on here. But I don't think that's rocket science right there. I'd be willing to donate a microphone and a stand if you.
I'd like to say I don't need one. I was a Girl
When you
Scout.
speak, because I can hear you.
All right.
I just want to point out one little thing, and it's true. I do get ill, and I have a serious stomach issue, so often I have to sleep sitting up. So we just invested in a very new sofa, reclines and such, that enables me the comfort because I get no rest. And sometimes I'm 3 days like this, and it's really a challenge to sleep, which we all know we need. One of the photos I noticed that Connie had presented shows our house, which is directly across the street, the big blue one. It's well lit. Now, I'm very happy it's lit because I don't have to worry about anybody around the house. Not that I ever have to worry about this town. I mean, I came from Warren to here. But 24/7 and in my bay window directly, and I'm not going to put blinds up. I have shears. I move all my plants in an area to kind of block it. I'm sick. I don't want to rearrange or do things to accommodate somebody's light. And we're not asking it to be removed. And, you know, I have to apologize too because Mark and I have both been trying to coordinate a time to discuss it with Jim. And we haven't been able to make that happen yet. We always try to get along with everybody in the neighborhood, but just to put a shield, it doesn't have to be up, it just to put a shield. 24/7, it's not bothering anything in the daytime. That's his bill, but at night it's my bill. You know, and it's very frustrating. I hate to go complain about it, but at the same token, I think there should be a courtesy to your neighbors. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak under the public comment?
If you folks have something to write with, I'm gonna do this fast, but I'm gonna give you some suggestions. First of all, we should put McKenna on notice that they have a certain amount of time to respond to correspondence from applicants, and they should respond in writing to the applicant. If they pay a fee, they should be given the courtesy of a written response. Number two, why don't we have the village office open on Friday? No excuse that it is closed. 3, working with the police chief, we need to do something about speed on our roads, noise on our roads, dirt on our roads. It's filthy. These trucks come out of the pit down there, They're dropping mud and crap all over the place. They're loud, they're noisy. If I'm showing a tenant space, I gotta put them in the back of the building. Cannot possibly have them in the front of the house. When those trucks are going by, you can't even hear yourself talk. Tickets, those numbers were very impressive, Chief, on the tickets. I'd like to see how many tickets are wrote from the south border of the village to Broadway. I never see anybody get a ticket there, and they're going 50 miles an hour. So, you know, you go down Burdick, and you got that little thing flashing. It's solar operated, tells you what your speed is. Does that cost a lot of money to put that in? It doesn't cost nothing. You know, we can do a better job of slowing these cars down. The other thing on traffic, we could do a better job of timing these lights. I want you people to go to my project, White House Village Shops, at 3:30 in the afternoon and try and turn left. You aren't turning left. So where do you think those people do? They turn right, and the very first street they come to, they take another right. And you know where they go? All the way through the residential district to get to Burdick and Hudson. They drive right through the town. They got no choice because they want to go north. They don't want to go south. So what we're doing is creating a constant situation where people are going through the residential neighborhood because they can't turn left. If we could get the lights maybe adjusted just a tad, the people could have and you know, my favorite subject, left turn lane at the south end of town. What a screw up that was. That was a pathetic example of stupidity and laziness. We have one at the north end. You know why I got one at the north end? Because I owned the whole freaking block, and MDOT wanted to turn late at East Street, and you know what? The only way they were gonna get it is if they put the left turn, the third lane to the bridge. That was it. It was either my way or no. Well, I didn't have that leverage at the south end. I only own one block. I don't own the whole damn thing. But that's a terrible situation. You got the credit union, you got my project, you got all these businesses down there, and nobody can get left out of there because there's no turn lane. Next thing is try and work with the DDA and the Planning Commission and come up with some meaningful things that you want to change to make the town better. For example, snow removal. We've been farting around with snow removal for years. Come to some decision on what we're gonna do. I mean, I read the thing, the people can't put the snow in the street. So I go to Mark Young, the jeweler. I have Judy, my girlfriend, with me. She ain't getting out of the car because there's 3 foot of snow at the curb. And I'm hustling around with my tank, so I'm about ready to be a hood ornament because by this time the snow is 2 foot from the curb. So I'm getting out of my car, got my door open, getting my tank, and then I gotta figure out how the hell I'm gonna get over this snow mound. And there's a solution to this, folks. You know, we've gotta use our head, gotta figure this out. So snow removal is a big issue. Let's get that solved. It's gonna be great for the customers, great for the store owners, great for the business owners, and great for the property owners. There's all kinds of programs. In Rochester, we had the snowflake program. You paid X amount of dollars, you got a snowflake in your window, they handled it. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but we gotta do something. That's the key, have to do something. And then we have code enforcement. Just to give you an idea how petty this can be, this is 2017. I get a letter from the building inspector who tells me, Chuck, your sign is violating the sign ordinance. Now get this, your sign is 6 feet 3 inches and the code calls for 6 feet. I said, say what? 3 inches? Well, we had the 3 inches because we had to take part of the sod out to accommodate the street chip program. So obviously when we took the dirt out, the sign got taller. But I responded very nicely. I sent them 5 pages of code violations. 5 pages. Now today you have the same situation. Maureen, you're gonna love this one. So I built a building where the brake shop was, across from the diner. And I put in a $6,000 enclosed dumpster area. someone decided to take the enclosed dumpster area down that is part of the site plan that approved that project and replace it with parking spaces. And in turn, they have 10 to 12 residential trash containers behind the building that they set out for residential trash pickup. How about that one?
Chuck, your 3 minutes are up.
And how about right now? Hey, doesn't bother me a bit. I'm just talking about code enforcement. You're a load of banner, 30 days, certain size, right? You need a permit. Loft for lease over the A&A Flower Building. No permit. Too big. Up there too long. Who the hell's watching that? How about farm and garden? A fence. Split rail. Not one thing in the ground. How about outside storage? The ordinance specifically says you can only have outside storage in 2 zoning classifications. C2 and industrial. Do we have any C2 and industrial in the village of Oxford and the main drag? The answer is yes. My son owns it. The only C2 in the downtown is his hunting store. That's the only C2. Then there's C2 on Burdick. So code enforcement. So what I'm trying to say is, these are all things that are immediate necessity to get handled. And what you're doing with this rental thing is not really a core problem. It just isn't a core problem. And if we can tackle the core problems, we can accomplish something. You know, I'll give you one little example here.
Did I mention your 3 minutes was up?
The downtown and its success really helps everyone. It helps the residential property owner. I built this project in Rochester several years ago. It's for sale now. It's 4,975 square feet. That's not very big. Like the collision shop is 5,000 square feet today. This is for sale for $1.3 million. And how about buying a house in Rochester? Let's say I bought a house there 20 years ago. Do you have any idea what those houses sell for today? So the success of the downtown, it generates money for the village. It generates money for the DDA. And it makes the people who have made an investment in either commercial or residential property, it helps them make some money. This final thing, girls. This is, see if I can find it here. This is what's going up in Rochester called Riverfront Place. That is a killer building. That is something else. And some of you, I don't know if you go, but if you go to Royal Oak and you go to Rochester, it's kind of eye-opening. Because you look at where they've gone in 20 years and where we've gone in 20 years, we're not even on the same planet. And I can tell you, I was in Rochester from 1985 to 2003. I owned 16 buildings downtown. And you look at that town today and you look at us, we're just not on the same page. You can put us on the same page, because don't let your time on this council end up being, well, shit, we got that rental ordinance passed. Try and set your sights of what you want to accomplish as a person to something that's productive and useful. Not that kind of crap. That's worthless. How can you inform those people? Joe says he's going to send a letter to all the people who don't have a principal residence exemption. Good concept. That means I'm going to get 19 letters of his 50. That ain't a good program. How the hell are you going to tell these people? How you can enforce that? Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to do the paperwork? You're not even open on Friday. Let's try to get it open on Friday first. Get some objectives. Try and accomplish something so when you leave office you can say, you know, look what we accomplished. When I left Lake Orion DDA, it was like, holy shit, look what we accomplished. Fencing down 24, lights down 24, children's park. We did so much stuff. And when you go home, you say, hey, look what we did. Look how we affected this town in a positive way. Make sure that you have something you can be proud of. Because right now you got nothing. You got this mundane stuff of proving this little piece of paper and improving that. That isn't where we want to go. We want to make a substantial change that's going to affect people's business and their lives and their income. Enough said, thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, item 8A, receive and file items, correspondence, letters, and reports.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 8A, 1 and 2.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Helmuth, supported by Kemp. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nay? Motion carries. Okay, 8B, please.
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 8B, including the bills, in the amount of $246,833.87.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Helmuth, seconded by Bourgeot. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Alma?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Bordeaux?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, 9, unfinished old business. First is A, the manager annual review follow-up. So I distributed a memo to council. And I'll kind of just go over it verbally here. So in November of last year, we had the village manager's annual review. At our regular meeting in December, there was a vote of council to increase the manager's base salary to $83,000. This motion was made and voted upon believing that the raise was approximately $5,000 or a 5 or 6% increase for Mr. Madore. However, we didn't have the accurate base salary at that time, so council's intent was not carried through. The actual percentage increase was only 2.7%. The intent of council's motion and vote at the time was to take into consideration the cost of living increase. At that time, it was 5.4% CPI from December of 2021, and also to reward Mr. Madore for his outstanding work for the village. And so in your memo before you, there's a table that shows the 2021 actual manager salary, what is being proposed for 2022 with an approximate 5.165% increase, and if you just round it up a little, that gets us $85,000. I think that was the intent of council at the time, and so I wanted to put this back on the table for council to approve and essentially correct the salary, giving Mr. Madore an additional $2,000, so it would be changing the base salary in his contract to $85,000, retroactive back to January 1 of this year.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Helmuth, supported by Bourgeot. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Bordeaux?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Alma?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Don't ever think we're doing that again.
And Mo made the motion.
Yep. There you
Because I
go.
had it in writing.
Quickly and loudly.
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the residential rental registration ordinance discussion. So we did have a public hearing today. Obviously, we got a lot of feedback, or a couple pieces of feedback at least, from property owners in the village, and I wanted to take time to have a discussion with council, to ask questions of Mr. Davis, to discuss with each other, and then we have it on new business, potential second reading of the ordinance as proposed. I also wanted to put on the table the inspection piece, but that's not on the agenda, so I think we need to stick to just the registration, and then we'll have the inspection on the next agenda for discussion, so we can start talking about that and figuring out the direction the council wants to go. So, if any council members want to start us off with any discussion on the rental registration aspect, please feel free to do so.
I'm just trying to find where I put my notes and all of this.
Kelsey, this is not voluntary, correct?
Right, so I think the approach was that it would be, for a period of time,
There would be some leeway.
leeway, right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's accurate.
I think it's important, and I don't know if we've had it in previous packets or not, or even if we wanted to do something in the leader that especially our fire chief, put something to the public to understand. This, while council does have an interest in looking into this, I think it was really driven from a safety component. I understand what was brought forward today. It's just that has not been the reality. At least that's what's been shared to us from chief, and I think that would help with some of the conceptions. I did have a question, maybe this is for Mr. Davis. In terms of, you know, being free, the intent is to not burden anyone in this process outside of knowing for safety purposes. Is there any way or any way the ordinance can reflect that this is free, like in perpetuity, or I think that was one of the concerns that was brought up.
Well, section 10-87 on page 4.
That was my one.
Yeah. There is no fee or charge to register any rental unit in the village. I mean,
So it's already written into the ordinance.
it's in there. Yeah.
Okay.
You asked for that. That's, and then there may be 2 versions. Maybe.
Thank you.
Bob sent us, my copy given Bob was my old packet. He gave us the updated version that you have in front of you.
Well, because you wanted me to delete D on page 4, I had to delete a couple other things, which were the definition of responsible local agent. There's no reason to have that definition if we're not gonna have D, right? And then there was, also on page,
6 on page 3.
item number 6 on page 3, again talks about the local agent, so I struck that one as well.
And I think maybe 3 on page 3 too. There's another one. There's one more.
Page 4, D, the responsible agent also.
Yeah, that one is complete, that one's out. So basically I went through and anything that dealt with a responsible local agent I took out.
Tom, Chuck, do you want to see these changes? They crossed some sections out.
In interest of open communication, it is my intention to ask to be placed on the agenda an inspection moving forward that would be pursuant with what our police and fire would like to see. A scaled down, a simple inspection checklist that is in many communities, including places like Rochester and our surrounding communities. That would be more focused on life and safety. It would not be cosmetic, to ensure people have a safe roof over their heads.
There's been a couple of mentions of police and fire wanting this, but I haven't heard from Chief Solwald or from Chief Schultz about it. And it just may be because I've been on council for a little over a year and wasn't here before. But I would really like to hear from our public officials regarding safety, if this is still a concern to them. I don't want to put you on the spot today, Chief, but just if it's something you've said before, it would be helpful for me to have it repeated, but also to hear from our fire chief to see, because from what I brought up at our last meeting, in my mind, I'm still having trouble with, what's the difference between a homeowner and with the information that police or fire would know about them in a tenant. So I understand the multiple living spaces, but that could be true in any property, and if there's a fire, they're gonna you would think, just destroy the windows or do whatever they can to save lives, so it wouldn't necessarily matter if there's multiple. I also think that there's other, avenues for relief with landlord-tenant issues, and that's the district court. I know that there's costs, associated with that as well for the tenant and also for the landlord. just some of my concerns I think I still have. They really haven't been, I guess, settled, at least in my mind, so I wanted to put them out there again. I know other communities do have registration ordinances. City of Pontiac is definitely one. I spoke to the Pontiac Landlords Association last week about their stuff just for what I do on my day job, but I know Rochester has one, and a lot of the, assessors use even the rental registration information to try to figure out assessing information too. So I know it's familiar in the area. It's done in a lot of communities, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out in my mind, weighing the pros and cons of it. Also, a lot of questions about enforcement that I need to get answers, and I'm sure Joe needs to get answers from McKenna or whatever we're going to do, or if it's going to be internally enforced. And then finally, a municipal civil infraction for failure to comply just doesn't sit well with me, because that's a heavy, to be summoned to court to have to defend something because you didn't fill out a form seems extreme. So I don't know if that's something that we can modify further so that it's not a ticketable offense necessarily. I think would help.
I know we talked briefly about this last meeting. Instead of making this a civil offense, do we have to have it in there, or is it just, if something happens and there was a failure to register, then the tenant would have already the rest of the ordinance to fall back on, instead of, a preemptive ticketing system.
So kind of like the snow removal ordinance, we issued them a violation notice with a fine. It's not a civil infraction that's tied with courts. I think that's the differentiation you're looking at. Is it maybe a smaller step or something?
I would like to see something smaller, at least to start. And maybe just in general, we're looking at a safety aspect from renters, which, most people at some point will rent a property in their life, that they have some sort of assurance that the property is safe, or that if something happens, that they'll be found.
Perhaps something in writing from Chief Schultz would be good to explain better what his concerns are and what he sees as a solution, versus us trying to tailor it to what we think he thinks.
I would like that.
Yeah, I agree, because I, like Kelsey, I have not heard this brought up by Chief Schultz before, so I'm kind of confused on it. And then I look at the fees, and we're looking at up to a $500 per day of offense, which feels a little, does the township have anything like this?
I don't think
So not right now.
Does our township have anything like this? Have they considered it?
I don't know about rentals. Actually, I don't think they do. I'm not sure to what degree they have them and to what degree it's been brought to their attention. I could reach out and find out, but I don't recall hearing anything about them. I could check.
In a way, and I'd like, this is the type of thing where I think that, I think sometimes we do some things in the village so much different than the township, and in a way I'd like to be more in tune with them. And possibly when we move forward with some of these things and actually communicating and working with them and coming up with something that's consistent within Oxford in total. I don't know if that's even been done before or possible, but to me it just kind of makes sense to do something like that. This makes me uncomfortable, especially the inspection process next being a mandatory. Something about it. I don't know if it's a government overstepping feeling to me, or just being new to it and not having heard from Chief before. I think understanding the reason more from, if this is driven by chief, I would like to have more communication with him on the intention and the purpose, personally.
I can reach out to him and request that for sure.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I don't know if it's possible to hold off on this.
Well, you can do that under 10A,
Okay. Thank you.
right?
Yep.
Aren't we on 10A?
We're on 10A.
No.
No,
We're on 9B.
Yeah, right now is the discussion, and then
Oh.
under new business, it's the second reading.
I thought we were on 10A.
I don't know.
Nope, that's okay.
Jumping ahead.
9B isn't even on my agenda, so I don't know.
I think what your wisdom here is to have some discussion before you were on the second reading issue.
Right.
Sorry, I'm looking at the old agenda.
It's all right.
No problem.
I think we're close to something, but I would like to see something in writing. I think that would help.
Okay.
Fire code inspection.
I'd like to make a motion to set this aside until we can get a letter from the fire chief with a recommendation.
Second.
Well, hang on a second, and I don't mean to be snarly and picky.
But you gotta
here,
be.
But I'm gonna be. So 9B, which is where we're at now, is discussion only. Can you make that same motion under 10A?
I just moved on to 10A.
Oh, we did?
Our discussion's over. The next thing's
Oh, we
That's fine. We can
Oh,
do-
I didn't, I'm behind, Mo.
try to keep up.
I didn't know you were moving the agenda there. So we're on 10A.
Someone's got
Are
to.
we
We'll be on 10A.
For God's sake, someone's got
All right,
to.
let's get to 10A. Let's call it 10A.
Okay, so 10A, motion made by Helmut and seconded by Ross. Was it? Okay, any discussion on that motion? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Bordeaux,
Yes.
Alba,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. So we will get more information.
We're coming back to another meeting, Tom.
Huh?
We set it aside for another night. We're gonna get a letter from the fire chief.
Postpone it.
Yep. Until we get what Pete Schultz wants.
For how long?
See, when you,
We'll call you.
I don't have his number.
Probably the next regular meeting. This
we're
is
gonna-
March.
We're gonna try to get Chief to the next meeting.
I'll try to get something in writing though, it's for the
Okay.
packet, not
For
just
the-
Give me your
his
phone
verbal.
number at the end of the meeting. Are you staying?
Pardon that?
Are you staying for the whole meeting?
No.
Can you give me your phone number?
Let them go home.
628-1196.
He's in the book.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm in the book. Yeah.
Okay.
What book is that?
We're done with
Is there a
that
book?
discussion for
They
next
still
time.
have books.
Next time.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Like I say, all of these things are way over exaggerated. Everything
All right,
that
all right.
they ever talk about.
Kelsey, let's.
All right, so
Whatever it is.
let's move on to
As
10B.
long as they put health, safety, and welfare of the children on the top of the list, you don't dare not approve it.
Thank
See you
you.
next month, Tom.
Next month? Oh,
All right, 10B is the
I'd like to see an end to this.
second reading for the Stormwater Engineering Design Standards. I'd move to approve the second reading for the Stormwater Engineering Design Standards, 10B on the agenda.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Cook, supported by Helmuth. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Bordeaux,
Yes. Kemp,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Alba.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next up is 10C. This is a resolution, proposed resolution 2022-02, minors and unsupervised access to firearms. I want to read this resolution into the record before a vote, but is there any discussion, questions, or comments from council?
I just wanted to add that I would like to see something like this sent over to the township and the school board so that if they wanted to replicate it, or even if possibly before submitting it, they want to be added to it, but I don't want to hold it up at all. So if, at the very least, if we could send it on over to them just to make them aware that this is what we're doing if they want to replicate.
We can make that addition right now, I think, on the spot. Can't wait to add it to the last be it therefore resolved.
Sure.
Okay. So I will note that.
As recipients of the resolution?
Right, as recipients, and that way they receive it directly as a part of this process.
Yeah, then they can.
Yep. So when I read it, I'll add that in verbally, but it'll be in the amended resolution for our vote. So bear with me, this is gonna take me a minute. But I want to read this because I think it's important. So this is the Village of Oxford Proposed Resolution 2022-02 to call on elected leaders to draft measures to restrict access to firearms among minors and on school grounds. Whereas the school shooting on November 30th, 2021 at Oxford High School in Oxford, Michigan was a horrific event, immediately claiming 4 young lives and leaving 7 other people wounded, some with life-threatening injuries. And whereas the Oxford Village Council stands with the Oxford community in mourning those who died, praying for the recovery of those injured and for healing among all those affected by this tragedy, including all Oxford High School students, family members, community members, and first responders. And whereas the Oxford tragedy was sadly the latest in a long list of school shootings, with shootings claiming at least 7 other lives over the first 4 months of the 2021-22 school year alone, according to Education Week. And whereas despite a 1-year decline linked to remote learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, school shootings have remained a continuing horror across our nation in the past decade, with an average of 6 shootings a year, or 1 every 50 days since 2013, according to NBC News. And whereas the United States stands alone among other developed countries in the number and frequency of school shootings, as well as in the number of those killed and wounded. And whereas the senseless and tragic moment at Oxford High School needs to be the last of its kind, as school children, residents, and visitors must be assured that even the most common task of any day will not be met with such violence. And whereas this horrific event will have far-reaching implications for the victims, their families, students at Oxford High School, hundreds of heroic first responders, the Oxford community, the state of Michigan, and the United States, it must be stopped so young and innocent lives will not be taken again. And whereas the shooting at Oxford High School and other schools in other states is a reminder that no community, whether urban, suburban, or rural, is immune to this type of violence, and serves as a reminder, call to action for lawmakers to enact measures that bring it to an end. And whereas that while the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects the rights of citizens to bear arms, and even though this right must be protected, additional measures must be taken to prevent the sale to vulnerable individuals and to keep firearms out of the reach of unsupervised minors. Now therefore be it resolved that on this 8th day of March 2022, the Oxford Village Council calls on elected leaders in the U.S. Congress and Michigan Legislature to immediately begin drafting measures that, while consistent with the Second Amendment protections, will restrict access to firearms among unsupervised minors and on school grounds, and increase penalties for adults who illegally provide firearms to minors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to President Joe Biden, U.S. Congress, the Michigan House of Representatives and Senate, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Oxford Township, and Oxford Community School District. So I move the proposed resolution as stated.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, supported by Ross. Any discussion, comments?
I was just gonna suggest the Oxford Township Board of Trustees.
Thank
Wording, and maybe, is it the Oxford School Board, or is it
Oxford
just
Board
Oxford
of
Community?
Educators.
Pardon me?
Oxford School Board of Educators. Oxford
School.
Board of
Board of Education.
I think it's educators.
Okay.
Double check it.
All right. I just wanna make sure when we type it up.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Kemp,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Bourgeois,
Yes.
Talbot,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes. Thank you. Resolution is adopted. Okay, next on the agenda is 10D. So this is a request from OCTV to be the station of record for the Village of Oxford. I put this as a discussion item this evening. I just wanted to get council's thoughts and maybe hear from our village manager about what this means, really.
You know, it was a phone call, so I didn't have anything in writing from Terry Stiles, the manager of OCTV. And he said, well, you know, obviously the Oxford Leader is a newspaper of record in town. We would just like it if the council would consider naming OCTV as the station of record.
It's very promotional, and it serves them well if it's okay with you.
Okay. Okay. Does council have any comments, thoughts? I mean, right now it's a discussion item. We can leave it at that for now, or I don't have a
know-
motion.
I don't really know if there's other choices
Right.
to be your of record.
I mean, so my only question is, I mean, did we do this for the leader? If it was stated that the leader is,
Well, you generally, as a municipal entity, you pick a newspaper of circulation for your postings. And if
There
you-
have been times we've taken it away
Yes,
from different newspapers
It's
and
be-
given it to others just because we wanted to.
right. So it's not uncommon to have an official
okay,
outlet for your notices and your postings, so people count on it. And it's not crazy to have a station of record. I just don't know, is there any other stations in the community?
Well, I'm sure there's Detroit metro stations that cover.
No, I understand that, but I
Yeah,
mean, any.
but that local.
Not local, so. I think it's very promotional, and it's probably good for them to say that they're the official media for the village.
Okay.
not that we would, but I just want to make sure we're covering our bases, that, you know, if something else comes up, once we make, you know, it official, what if something else comes up, can we always,
You can change it.
okay.
It wouldn't limit us to.
No,
Okay.
you've changed your record.
Not that I want to
Okay.
do
You-
that.
you-
Yes, yeah.
Since I've been here, you've changed your newspaper of record several times.
Okay.
Did not know that.
Okay.
So, Terry Stiles has offered to send over a template type resolution. She just didn't at that time, and it was just last Wednesday or Thursday it came to us, so I said, well, let me just toss it to the council, and that's where we're at now.
Okay.
If you'd like me to reach out and get something from her,
Yeah, you should get something in writing.
Okay. Okay.
Got to get him a chair.
As long as everybody's still in their chairs, I think we can wait to get more information from Ms. Stiles to see
Okay.
what she is proposing. Unless anybody has any objections to that, we just won't take any action on this, it's just discussion. Okay. 10E is capital improvement plan for 22 to 27, discussion. Mr. Medori?
please tell me the capital improvement plan has some color?
That's $7.
Huh? Well, there's only a couple things I highlighted, and that was the ARPA funds.
Yep.
Okay, we were having some color issues with our copier. Copy machine guy was here, scanning, we were scanning, and then we also had a new server put in, unplanned, Thursday and Friday last week, so even things we scanned today are residing in the old server, not accessible to us currently. Our IT guy was in today, not sure if he finished it by the end of the day.
No.
But, so, it's been a week. I hate getting a new server. When you come in, everything on your desktop, like getting a new phone, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Where is everything? Where's my stuff?
But then the copy
So-
machine is broken, missing parts.
Yeah,
We
well,
cannot get
Yeah,
also.
right, and that's
For the
that's a lease
copy.
machine that we have, so.
Yeah.
Sounds like capital
Anyway,
improvements.
I presented this up, I broke it down the water fund, street fund, and general fund, just to give you guys an idea of those items. Predominantly, what's driving our capital improvement plans is the lead and copper rules, water mains, the water service leads. They tie into the streets, because that's where the water mains are underneath, if not the middle of the street, at least the edge of the street. And of course, it won't make any sense to repave and tear up and repave half a street, so we'll end up doing the whole street when we do a water main on a street. I did it for a big picture. Additionally, Oakland County Parks has that millage they passed where those parks grants are available to us. And you can either have a capital improvement plan that's been approved, or a Parks and Rec plan that's been approved. One of those type of things will work for what you need to apply for the grant. The first round of those grants was January of this year. Like I mentioned before, my intent would be to get a capital improvement plan adopted in place this summer, so we're available to apply for any grants we might want to do, say for Scripture Park or something next January. It's a 10-year millage that those grants will be available to Oakland County Parks. If you're awarded a grant one year, you can't get one the following year, so they're trying to help keep communities from gobbling up year after year after year. As we discussed a few months back, our Parks and Rec plan expired 2022. Talking to Parks and Rec Director Ron Davis, who I found out yesterday is retiring. And then he talked with Jack Curtis that we'd probably coordinate, but it might be another year or two before they're willing to, or wanting to put their new parks plan together. They don't want to spend the money in order to do it, let it sit on the shelf for 3 years before they're going to do something. Why not just wait and do it, and that way it'll get, you know, more life out of the parks plan. So that's part of the reason too, to also get something on the record that we can adopt. The other thing is, if you look on the page 1, the water fund, on the estimated completion date of 2022, those amounts, 60,000, and then the lower amount, 162,500. Those are for things that are earmarked in the Hudson Denison project for this year. Those I had highlighted on my copy, I'm sorry. And then on page 2, where it says ARPA fund, 318,500. That's a total of those three, that $96,000 to the left, and the 60,000 and the 162.5 on the front page. So, and I did that just to give you an idea. We're estimated, it was like $372,000. We got another small amount that the state gave us because some communities didn't take their money, so they rolled that money back in and sent it out to those communities, again, based on per capita and stuff. So I think we got another $729. So we're around 373,000. I did that because, you know, everybody has a lot of ideas what to do with the ARPA funds. Our water fund, our water lead and copper rule compliance component is really going to drive a lot of our costs. It's a mandated cost. Kelsey's fully aware of the lawsuits and things in the state's position that we have to do this.
Well, it was an unpaid for mandate.
Well,
Sure was.
yes.
Do you think?
But then remember, it wasn't the state's response. It's not an unfunded mandate because we're not mandated to provide water.
That was their defense.
It was a
And my office sued the state of
We
Michigan.
could button up, we could close them. Yeah.
One of the most circular arguments I've ever heard.
So anyways, so we will be on the hook for it unless we want to tell everybody we're closing the water plant, go get well. I don't think that's anybody's plan.
No, you're not.
We're not doing that. So this is kind of laid out. I only did a couple years out as far as planning wise. You'll see I had Division Street on there. While talking to Don Brandon today, that in 2024 maybe do something different than Division Street. But I just wanted to kind of give an idea. Davison Street in the 2023 is one that we still down and I both think would be good for us to do. Just give an idea of the total aggregate amount of water main and then the water service leads of $4.3 million over their next, we have up to 20 years to pay. But you'll notice on the water leads on page 2 there, the estimated cost is $4,800 because that's slightly more than we're paying now. In 15 years, that's not going to be the price, right? How can it be? 18 years, you know, so I think it'd be good if we tackle it and be a little aggressive on it and try to get as many as we've done in the next 10 or 15 years as possible, and not push it to the limit of 20 years. To take, you know, to make better progress on it, take advantage of today's prices versus 10, 15 years prices down the road. And the fact that we're getting, I don't know, 8% of the money given to us through the ARPA funds, that's a nice bonus. It'd be nice if it was 80%, but it's not. But when it comes time to budget this year, we'll have to take this into consideration. One of the things I probably will recommend at budget time is some increase in the monthly water rate. We have some bonds that have gone off, but maybe a $4 or $5 a month rate increase, which is, you know, like $6,000 a month. Just to help fund this a little bit more in the short run to get us some space. That'll be up to you guys to decide. You can say, let's just go through this in the next 4 or 5 years, see where we're at. We have resources in the water fund. They will be depleted as we bite off chunks of this. And I just thought it might be better to add a little bit too, as we, you know, if we're gonna add $75,000 in revenue, but we're gonna spend $300,000 in revenue, it just helps offset it. So nothing has to be decided tonight. This is pre-budget type stuff I want to get to you, to have this discussion and maybe answer some preliminary questions. The water tower schedule maintenance, that is, you see, it's only 4 years away. There's $200,000 right there. Expensive. Those are the things, you know, owning and operating a water treatment and distribution system comes with a lot of red tape, and there's more all the time. And a lot of it is well-meaning, and a lot of it's needed. A lot of it's very burdensome on a smaller community, smaller system than us. The flip side of that is we only have, 540 service lines, not 15,000 or something like some communities have that are, you know, in the tens of millions of dollars to get their system taken care of. So I guess it's a blessing in that sense. The road repaving, like I said, that street fund monies, that will kind of follow and be driven by our water main work. So just a preliminary thing, we will discuss this more at budget time. If you look at the back page, general fund, the only thing really coming out of general fund is potential item to Scripter Park. The only thing really to look this year is the park rules sign on the wall of the bathrooms is really dilapidated and needs to be replaced. It's a small amount, so it's nothing to worry about. But if we're able to get our Parks and Rec plan or a capital improvement plan on file, we can always apply for the Oakland County Parks grant next January. And I think they'll cover up to 75%. We have to have a minimum 25% match. So just some ideas there as well. Again, that's something that might go into if we, you know, the 22, 23 budget year. Sounds weird even saying that, the one we're getting ready to do too. So food for thought, I guess. There's no action, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I agree that yes, most of our ARPA funds should absolutely be used towards the water fund, put towards the water fund. I don't want to write off using some of that ARPA money for rental ordinance costs. I'm not blind to the fact that it's been potentially a rough year towards landlords and renters. So I don't want to completely write that off. And before we move on, for the rest of council, I wanted to have your opinion. At the last Pollyant Trail meeting, Lake Orion brought up using ARPA funds to resurface the trail. Now, it was not an official discussion, it was kind of an offhand comment, it wasn't fully hashed out yet, but it's going to be on the agenda for the coming meeting. Lake Orion would like us to, is challenging the other communities to use their ARPA funds to resurface the trail. I think that different communities are in different positions, and I don't think every community is on board with it, based on the knee-jerk reaction from the other communities. But it's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting, and I would like to have anyone else's thoughts.
Can it be?
So it's not just me going towards the meeting, making that decision.
I have personal thoughts of if we're going to use ARPA for anything other than what we've currently planned it going to with the water, is we have things in our community with the school that it could possibly be used towards, and that's where I would suggest looking at. But
my opinion would be, though I love the Pollyant Trail, it's right across the street from my house. I think there's better places to use those.
I would just like some direction, so it's not just me at this.
Well, your vote wouldn't bind this.
No, but I just
Yeah.
would like to hear anyone else's.
So
I don't know.
So far, you're probably getting lukewarm.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was at too,
A
frankly.
lukewarm reception.
Can it even be used for that? I mean, my
Well,
understanding.
they've expanded. They
Okay.
really. I mean,
Like that 10,000 standard deduction you can use for anything.
oh my God,
Or
they
10
really
million.
expanded.
Sorry.
When they started off,
Okay.
you were like in this box.
4
Yeah.
categories.
Right.
And now it's, I don't know, by the time it's,
Okay.
you can almost use it on anything. There's a way to word what you're doing, it'll fit.
It
Got it.
doesn't seem fiscally responsible.
And that's kind of,
I mean, if
while
we're
it's a
already-
lovely idea, that's kind of where I'm.
We're already talking about raising water prices,
Yes.
which could also mean raising taxes just to do, so we can continue to have water. I think that has to take a priority right now.
That's kind of where I was at with it as well.
I agree.
So for instance, what's left over, if you look at the amount already allocated for this year's, well, again, only 20 water service leads this year too, because of the other water main projects. That's 318,000, that only leaves about 60,000 left, but not already figured into the pie for the water main work that we're doing this year.
Right.
60 grand's not going very far.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we should use 100% of the village ARPA funds for the lead service line replacement, assuming, I know the rules say that the funds have to be obligated by the end of 2024 and actually used, and completed and expended by the end of 2026. So assuming we can get it done that quickly, we should use it all for that. Legally, it's the most sound decision too, because the lead service lines we're replacing are private property. And so that way, anytime you can take this ARPA money that's coming from the federal government and use that on private property rather than using public money on private property, it's a smart decision, so.
And that was one of the original 4 boxes, right? Lead and sewer line, water and sewers.
That was like
big
number one.
big one, yeah.
It was number one.
It fit from day one, and now again, it's so wide open what you can use it for.
Do you need, action by council to resolve for that to be dedicated by that time, or is that something you could just take care of?
I think,
Okay.
and I was looking back in the minutes, I think some of for the projects we have now, I think, which, again, I sent an email to you guys, the bids are out. Hopefully, the bid opening is the 22nd. We're a little concerned now with asphalt prices being tied to the oil prices. We were hoping for a good deal, but I'm not sure where those prices are gonna come now. But again, that money, we're hoping, if all goes as planned, we'll get those bids, we'll have them in front of you in April with a recommendation from myself and Don and Row Engineering, or Professional Services. And if everything goes smooth and we approve that recommendation in April, we can get to a contractor to have it potentially done in June, May, June. And so therefore, we're obligating the funds and we're using the funds, a good chunk of them in these projects. And, some of that, of course, is the west end of Park Street, which is partly being paid for by the $500,000 that was increased.
Okay, thanks.
Joe, I see you only put the one road with no water main on the repaving, which is the park, which we've already verified. I know we kind of identified 3 other roads next in line that we believe. Is that something, are we just waiting for Park Road to be done to identify the next road project, the next?
Yeah, so under road repairing. So
The
this year I
last page.
have Hudson from Burdick to Denison, Denison from Hudson to M24.
No, the next page.
On page 3?
Yeah.
Without the water main.
Oh, yeah, that is one, right, that one is just because it's regulated, right? Everyone
Right.
else is being driven by the water main projects. But that one was on our radar, and it's, we've heard, and we've decided, we looked at that, so that one's a disaster.
Right.
Let's spend, hopefully, the 90,000 we hope it's gonna be, not the 119 it came in last fall on that. So that one is the outlier, so to speak.
Yeah, when we did that, to be able to cover this, what we were hoping would cover the whole thing of this road, we had, at that time, we talked about, I think it was 3 other roads that were in our future, for next steps. Is that something we wanna readdress once Park is done?
Yeah, or maybe if you see, for instance, go back to the water main upgrades, let's see, on Davison Street, at the very top line on the first page. Davison Street from Pleasant to 24, 600 feet, 150,000, maybe do that in 2023, which then would include a repaving of that road.
So so you're saying, just so I understand to make sure, all future road repairs are going to be driven by the water main work that's underneath the road, so.
Unless some outlier comes up like Park Street.
Okay.
Because, and I was talking to Don today, I didn't put out 4 or 5 years out because that's discussion yet to be seen. Some streets, like you said, East Street is a part of it. Yeah, it needs to be upgraded, but that street's in good shape. There's other streets that are in worse shape we want to go back to. We might as well do the water main under the worst street and get those caught up, like Park and Denison and stuff. Things like that. That'll help drive. We don't want to go tear up a street that's still got you know, 10 years of decent life on it, when we got one over here that's just falling apart. If they both need water main work, we'll prioritize the one that's in really bad shape. But again, each year we can go, we'll bring that to you guys as far as when it comes time to budget and plan it out.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right. 10F, April Village Council meeting date. Okay.
This month there wasn't a school board meeting, so, so that brings us to the April. I think they still have their meeting scheduled for the same night as ours next month.
Here's another, if we would like Pete to be here, we have to make sure he can be here.
Right.
Would you like me to call him at this point so we can figure out? Because I know he has certain nights where he has fire training as well as
Yes.
the township.
Do you want, okay, so
I'll
April
be-
12th is our scheduled meeting. Yes.
I'll personally be prioritizing this meeting in April, so I will be here,
then-
even if there's a school board meeting that night.
Okay.
So we don't have to, especially if Chief can be here that night. I know I've been the driver of a lot of that, so I appreciate you all taking the steps to allow me to be where I felt I needed to be.
So if we did on the 12th, then you're okay with that, leaving it the way it is? And I know mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I know Pete typically is available on our normal meeting night.
Yep.
It's fine,
Okay.
as long as
Well,
with everyone
that's up
else
to you
here.
guys.
That's
I'm
fine,
okay
I
with
think
the 12th.
When's Easter?
Easter is.
Not that I'm going anywhere.
We
The
can have to,
17th.
it's late.
Okay.
43 days after last Tuesday. Ash Wednesday.
Yes, that's the week of Easter, isn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's that following, that's that
The
Sunday
17th,
following.
yeah.
Okay, so we're good for April 12th. Okay. Budget workshop dates?
If you want to have one now or towards the end of this month, before we get to April, just for a preliminary one, because in April, I'm supposed to present the budget, and by no later than a second meeting in May, like we're supposed to adopt the budget, I think second meeting in May.
Yep.
There's a 5th Tuesday this month, so I thought that would work. It's not a planning commission meeting, and that is still 2 weeks prior to the next council meeting. So I don't know if that 5th Tuesday,
You're looking at the 29th?
yeah, we could, and, you know, I talked to a chief yesterday. We already just started touching base on budget stuff from him, and Don was out yesterday, Don and I met this morning and went over some other things with him. We can have our stuff pretty buttoned up in the next week or two, so I could have some pretty good roughed in stuff and, you know, filled in. A lot of the stuff, you know, the wages and PD and DPW, all those stuff will flow in where they flow. So that's still a few weeks out. Would be like 3 weeks from tonight, I guess, 29th.
Yep.
And I don't know if that night, if you guys have any conflicts, and if you want to do it, is 7 work, or do we do it at 6? Or I'm not sure, I know you guys sometimes, work-wise and kids-wise and family-wise, want to do it differently.
I think that's a great night for me. I'm busy the next 2 weeks, so putting it on that night actually works out really well. So
We got planning commission on the 15th, right, Mo? Next Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah, that works well for me too. I could probably do 6:30 if we wanted to come in earlier. I don't know if I could do earlier than that though.
Even if there's pizza?
The kids are off that week from school.
Oh, that's spring break?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is? I don't pay attention.
Then I can probably come earlier. Yeah, I could probably do 5:30 then, if 5:30 works for everyone.
yeah, if everybody else is good with it, I would like to do 6, just
6.
not to be, so that way we can be here a little longer and it won't feel as late.
Well, I mean, minimal public comment that night, I hope.
Yeah.
So 6 o'clock on the 29th. Everybody's good?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay. No items removed from the consent agenda, so we'll go to a second round of public comment. Anyone like to speak under a public comment?
Ladies first.
Chuck's not here, so it's kind of. had a couple things. So this rental registration thing, if you're concerned about where you're gonna live and if it's not safe, get an inspection. Homeowners do it every time you buy a house. Call the ordinance officer if you think it's not safe. Call the building inspector if you think it's not safe. There are so many ways that if you feel that where you're renting isn't safe, don't live there. I was gonna tell Chuck, he's complaining about the rules in 24.
I can't
Don't have
access
it
my
on
photos.
24.
Some people don't have a choice.
And, you know, he's complaining about permits. There's a building because that got a new roof with no permit, so he's no one to be judging people for not getting permits. But, the only other thing that I have, is there a way that I can get a copy of that resolution 2022-02? Because I didn't see it online anywhere. Yeah.
It has a few changes, but nothing substantive.
Okay. And then my only other question that I had is, do you know when or if Oxford in the village will ever get any other cable company besides AT&T and Charter?
Comcast.
Why do they have a monopoly in the first place?
They don't. Comcast came to the village a couple years ago.
Okay.
We signed a franchise agreement with them. They were focusing on the downtown areas first.
Okay.
I was surprised myself because I thought, I didn't know you could overlap. They said, oh yeah, you can. I'm like, okay, I learned something.
Just because there's no competition, so
Right.
when you call Charter, they're like, yeah, well, good luck.
I
Go somewhere
suppose,
else. Try.
what drives them is their cost for bringing the line and power down. They had to bore underneath and tear up sidewalks downtown. It upset a lot of businesses too. But those businesses, some of them were the ones signing up for the service. Could they look at expanding out into the neighborhoods? They could. I don't know what would drive it. What number is it makes it right for them to go down the street and down the street? I'm not sure.
Well, it's just weird because like Comcast, they're in Lake Orion, they skip Oxford, but they're in Metamora.
And
So
they're
it's
in,
like-
they're in
Yeah,
here too
they're
now.
here.
They are in downtown now. They came up through Glassby, like, south
But
of
only for the
Drainer.
businesses, right?
No,
That-
for residential as well.
That's what they targeted. That was their
Oh,
initial
okay.
target because of the density of them, I believe, and they thought that they could sell and compete in the business market for like the sports bars and TVs. And then, of course, there's residents upstairs.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
You could call them and prod them and just say, you know, you're in town, reach out farther. See, give them push on that end, I guess, if you'd like.
Yeah.
I don't know if we,
Yeah, because I mean, it'd be nice to have more than, you know, like you go to Lake Orion, you got 5 different cable companies or, you know, like Sterling. I mean, I know we're not that big, but, you know, it'd be nice to have a choice. So, and I do have a question. Well, you probably can't do anything about it, but every morning when I go to work at this light, I'm backwards, at Burdick 24, and you probably, I'm sure you've seen it, these cars are in the middle of the road when the light is red. When the green arrow is turning, they're in the middle of, when I'm turning to go from my house, I don't know if it's east, I can't, I suck at directions. But I'm turning to go north on the Pier Road at that light. That car in the turn lane is in the middle of the road. They're not even behind the white line.
they don't complete their term.
Well, they try it, yeah, they get stuck in it because the light turns and then they don't finish their turn.
If you're the last driver in the intersection, you're allowed to complete your turn.
Yes, but they don't, they sit there.
They're full car like, they are white.
Yes, and then I almost hit them because they're in the middle of the road.
You see what time you leave in the morning?
What's that?
What time do you go to work?
10 after 8.
All right, I'll let my guys know.
You should just leave earlier. We don't have that problem. People who work real hours don't have that problem.
You need to beat
Turn
that
left
person.
off of First Street.
To left on First Street. No, I'm gonna go out of my way and go down to the white houses down there.
Yeah, turn left.
Yeah, and as far as cutting through residential, I've lived here since '97, that's been going on since then, and that's never gonna change, no matter what you do to the Pier Road. The Pier Road's a highway, you can't stop the noise, you can't stop the tires, you can't stop the dirt on the trucks. I mean, what do you want the trucks to do, get a car wash as they leave the gravel pit? But, thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with her on the rental. We ride the coattails on, you know, the fire department and safety, so there's really nothing as far as on our end that we're holding on to as far as your rental agreement or whatever you guys have going on with that, so. The light ordinance, I think that is a fantastic idea. I've talked to that poor resident about the individual on Pearl Street that has the light that is shining. We've talked about many things like maybe getting bulbs that are a little dimmer or whatever, or I like the idea of the cone, but it'd be a good idea for us to come up with some kind of a lighting ordinance, because yeah, they made a good point of a car, if it's angling in the right direction and shining on a house, I mean, that can be annoying, I can see that, so. And talking to her, I'm like, well, there's not really anything we can do about lights, we want an ordinance for that, so, I do feel sorry for her for that, so maybe we can do something about that. Like Chuck, I also track, the stats in 24 and throughout the village. And I will tell you that, I mean, and I know it's more than 40,000 vehicles daily that go through this town. We have 1 or 2 officers on at a time, taking on probably approximately 1,000 calls for service monthly. We have about 60 streets in the village, 120 stop signs, 3 traffic lights. We do our fair share of traffic, and I think we do a really good job at that. And I will tell you, in this profession, everybody is an armchair quarterback. They think that they know where we should be, what we should be doing at all times. And I assure you that we are using every spare minute that we can to ensure traffic safety in this town, because that's one of our priorities. M24 is our biggest one. Our stats, that's where you see most of our stats, is most of our stops is on M24, so it's just a kind of a no-brainer. But we are doing that, and I just wanted to ensure him that we are doing that, and we will attempt to do more as much as we can, but I've heard we're either doing too much or we're not doing enough, or but I assure you that we are doing the traffic, and we're going to continue on that. And M24 is a priority, obviously, because of a lot of the traffic we have on that road. So, and the cutting through, yeah, I know it's a public road. You can't tell people they can't. But the best thing we can do is to try to monitor that and keep the speeds down and make sure people are making stops on stop signs and things like that. So we do the best that we can. So, and our priority right now is to be in the school zones as much as we possibly can as well. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I forgot.
You're doing everything just right too, Chief.
You don't get to go twice. It's a big
Chief
deal.
pulled me over the other day and I
Seriously. Not discriminating.
I couldn't roll down my window because I just got my illegal tints put on either. So.
And you told them
Down the street.
Yes, so.
She's very quiet.
So I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but so much has been said that I just feel compelled I need to add my 2 cents to everything.
Good.
First of all, about the traffic light, I've noticed something happened when they switched the way that it ran. They really should make it a solid red after the green arrow, because when they make it the blinking yellow, people creep out into the middle. They want to be the one to go last, but the people from the other direction are still coming, and they're not going to stop. And you're not going to get hit, so you're hung out there in the middle. So I don't know if there's some way to ask MDOT to say, look, we need a green arrow in the beginning, but then turn it to a solid red. I know, so you might not get 3 extra cars in or something, but it just is very dangerous. I've seen tons of people almost get hit. But.
So that semi comes down here and clips them.
Yeah. So anyway, but the first thing, because I was feeling so sorry for you all being so berated for so long, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate how much work you put into everything and how thoughtful I think that you are on all of the decisions that you make. And I've only dabbled in coming to these meetings over the 20 years that I've lived here, but I think this is one of the best councils I've seen, and I'm totally in support of everything you're trying to do. It's amazing to me. And also, I love your small done right tagline. I grew up in Rochester. I don't want to live in Rochester.
Thank you.
I want to live in Oxford, and I like the size that it is right now. So let's please not try to be some behemoth. I'm not for that. I might have to move if it's too much bigger. And then also I want to thank you so very much for your very quick and thoughtful work on that, the secure storage firearm issue. That means so very much to me, and I really appreciate that. And I would love to also get a copy of it because it's so well done. I'd love to share it around with as many other places as they can, like Orion or wherever. They all should have the exact same thing because I think it's wonderful. So
I agree. I think we should send that resolution to a lot more communities than just Oxford Township.
We'll get you a copy
Sure.
of that.
We'll get you a clean copy.
I can't find a way and give it to you.
I scribbled
Thank
on
you so
mine.
much. It's very well done, and I really appreciate everything you've done.
We'll end up printing it on, with our letterhead on it. It'll adjust it down to a 2-pager, but it's already a 2-page for her certification anyways. But I think
Terry should be able to email it to every clerk in the state.
that's what I'm saying, so we'll adjust.
get you a better one.
On a letterhead, and so if you just maybe send us an email or give us a call.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone, that's a lot of work.
Just live right around the corner, right
Yeah.
next to Ashley, so.
Oh, okay.
The best neighbor in the world, can't
Yeah,
we?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right back in.
Thank you for your comments.
She's getting
Really
enough.
appreciate it. Any other?
She doesn't know yet.
Actually, keep the lights down.
I have a quick question. Where's the chocolate?
Yeah, we need that back.
Where is it or what's it?
Where's the box of chocolate?
Well, when she said that, I turned and said, give her some chocolate. Yeah, it was fun.
Any other public comment?
On the way by.
I got the lid. I want the chocolate.
She wondered where the lid was because she went to put it in the fridge.
We have boxes of tissue, chocolate.
I
Okay.
had everything but the chocolates.
Pass this down for the committee reports.
I'm better now. Would anybody like a chocolate?
All right, Councilperson Bourgeois, do you want to, do you have anything to report on NODA?
I mean, stealing Rod and Charles and Ashley Ross's thunder there a little bit. I mean, Kelly Westbrook came to NODA, and we got the trolley approved. I understand that was attempted years ago, before most of us here, and shot down. And so, I mean, it came in and was fully approved. I think it's a great step in a lot of different ways. I mean, as far as NODA, we know we're going to be looking at some changes in transportation possibly, and I see it as a step for NODA in additional business, additional clients. So I think it's a really great, we had both Lake Orion and Oxford DDA come to the NODA meeting to discuss it, and it was great to see them collaborating. They worked really well together, so I'm very excited about what this could be for our future. I was supposed to talk to Kelly about some ideas for DDA, and I don't think I sent my message. So I'll be talking to her about that, but I'm really looking forward to that. That's pretty much everything for NODA. We put everything into getting the trolley, paperwork, whatever. the contract drawn up as quickly as possible so they could get it out. They only had, thank you, about.
We had like 47 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, they were like, we're gonna have this thing rolling in a week, so that was pretty amazing how quickly that went, and I appreciate everybody who put the work into that. It's
Kelly
great.
frightened me.
I'm sure she's
persuasive.
she does. It doesn't take much. She's got some great ideas, and she does a great job of promoting it and making sure it's known, and I think it's got a lot of future for us with that, and I do hope that it's more than a pilot, and we find ways to continue it going financially, and I can only see good things with it.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, DDA, Councilperson Ross.
All right. I'll try to be quick since there's been a lot to go over. We are working on a couple of grants. So we are working first on a T-Mobile grant that is due at the end of this month. And we're looking on redoing the back of the 4 quadrants. So we looked at 2 different models. We were either going to maybe do a little bit in each quadrant at a time, or what we decided to do is if they're up to $50,000 grants, and it has to be on property that we own, that we're going to apply for 1 quadrant each year as long as these grants are available. So Kelly and I are working on that. The design committee helped tremendously with that, and so hopefully Lake Orion did receive a T-Mobile grant, and so we're hoping that we as well will receive one to start in the southeast quadrant, back behind there to start. As well, you might have seen the stars in some of the windows around town. So that is Stars of Hope, and I've been working the DDA, trying to partner with the library, the Stars of Hope organization, the Michigan Association of Art Therapists, it's really a lot of different partners coming together to try to get this to an exhibit out in where the lot where the farmers market is. So hopefully, we had a conversation with Ford County Community Foundation. That grant is also due at the end of this month. I'm waiting on a few quotes and final okay from the library's attorney to move forward, but we're hoping to have all of the stars exhibited outside for the duration of the summer season through farmers market, which will be extended through October of this year, so a little bit longer. And then after the stars are removed, to bring them down and to digitize them so that we don't have to physically store them, but we have some sort of record in our community, whether it's housed at the library or the museum, that those stars will be on record for us as, coming at using the art therapy and the messages towards Oxford. So working on that. The trolley is awesome, ride it. Data is showing that people are showing up in the different communities that haven't, that aren't traversing normally. It really thanks to NODA and to SMART for collaborating on this. I know just the more partnerships, the better. The businesses are seeing an influx, which is nice because this is typically a slower time of year, especially January, February. And they all did such tremendous work in our DDA district, donating after the tragedy that I don't think many of them really thought about what they were going to do in what's typically the slowest, quarter for them. And so the trolley does seem to be helping that. We are working on evaluation. We do have, let's see here. There is a trolley tracker app that we are working on. We put it on Facebook and then it has some glitches. So we're working on that. If it's glitching, we're trying to fix that in the coming days. Letterboxing is currently running through the month of March. It is a fun scavenger hunt for families. It's between Oxford and Lake Orion, and there are over 20 hidden clues throughout both communities. So bring a notebook or a journal and you can collect all the stamps around town. Business shopping passports run through the end of March. Save your receipts, totaling $25+. Bring them to either Oxford or Lake Orion DDAs to receive a stamp. You'll receive a $10 gift card from Oxford and a $10 gift card from Lake Orion each time you acquire 4 passport stamps. The DDA is currently working on 5 business owners on new facade and signage grants. So there's just a lot happening, and hopefully we'll get Kelly an assistant here soon.
Perfect. Thank you. Polly and Trail, any additional updates?
Thank you, Chief, for letting us use your space again for the pop can drive.
It's not you guys, this is our property, not mine. This is all of us.
Okay, well, this time we won't stink up the garage. That was, Linda can get things done, and that was beyond anyone's wildest dreams. So there's pop can drive, 50% to Addison Youth. Oh my Lord, my brain just.
Addison Youth Assistance.
Yes, thank you.
That's not just me.
Yeah. And then 50% Pally and Trail. And then there was also a bench donation from the Rochester, ooh, wow, I cannot read, the Rochester Gardening Club, for a bench that is going to be placed on the Pally and Trail that's essentially going to be at the base of the high school hill. It is a very touching inscription that I will butcher if I try to repeat it now. But the bench is really coming from Donnie Steele from Lake Orion. So that was very, very touching and kind of her. We put there in honor of our kids.
Great, thank you. Councilperson Hellman with Planning Commission and Cable Commission.
First, thank you for the chocolates. Starting to get low blood sugar there. The Planning Commission met a week ago. We approved a sign for a business at 53 South Washington and had a very interesting discussion about lumens and how they affect signs on driveways. Bob, I can't believe our nuisance ordinance wouldn't help with
Well, your
this.
nuisance ordinance might be helpful. I've been looking online since they were speaking a very compelling story. Every commercial district has regulations that you can't extend light across the property line to another property, and all of those commercial zoning districts that abut against residential have the same rules, but we haven't found a lot that exists within residential. So we will find it. If not, we will get something in place. It just seems so logical to me that you shouldn't, as a residential homeowner, be able to have lights extending into across your property lines.
Well, let me know if you need to bring it up at a planning commission meeting with.
Yeah, and then
the
there's
zoning ordinance.
also, I was noticing online that there's also, that it's directional, and then it's, yeah, there's a lot of factors, but I don't think it's that complex. I don't think this is a complex ordinance.
No, it's, the light has to be shined on your property and
Well,
not off your property.
Yeah, and not across your property line.
Right.
Right. There's also the concept, though, of the level of the light, because a light at a certain angle, even though it may not be going off your property, is still intrusive to the neighbors. In other words, so we have to, I found some stuff while we were, I thought their presentation was great.
I just had one thing I was worried about with that ordinance is it being used around Christmas. And whether there had to be something about Christmas lights in there as well. I don't know if I do not know if there is anything that would.
We put a Santa exception.
You know, I don't know if there's any way that would even come up. I just thought we should maybe be cognizant.
You can also regulate things by hour. There's some things we can look at. Joe and I.
Motion lights, I know, are some problems in some communities too, because every time the neighbor's cat goes off, it's on.
Yeah, or the wind blows and the motion light goes on, right? Well, Joe and I were already talking about this, so.
Thank you.
And then as far as the cable commission, we did not have a quorum this month. We were unable to meet. So we're off to April.
Thank you. F is manager, staff, and attorney reports. Mr. Medor?
Oh, first thing I want to say is, there are microphones. Can you hear those speakers at all when we talk?
Yeah.
For you guys.
Yeah, so, again, tonight was unique with Chuck's oxygen machine, right? There was that
Yeah, I think that was it.
that normally isn't here, and just our ambient voices are typically enough, and then there are these, because I know we were checking this with the microphone, because they were gonna use a boom mic for that versus being tied in at one time. So there are microphones here. We don't need to be, our gentleman with the guitar doesn't need to bring us one. I appreciate the offer. But, you know, again, I could have maybe turned those up, and I think, I didn't catch your name, but he helped to turn it up a little bit there as well. So, again, and if anybody would like to discuss, I talk to Chuck often. Last week I was on the phone for an hour. Week before that, 45 minutes. Yes, only an hour. He was getting low on oxygen, I think, so. Again, if you want to hear more about it, feel free to call me.
I think I heard enough today, but I did take notes, so.
Learn to use a gavel, girlfriend.
I know. We don't get much public comment, so it's hard for me to pick that up, but.
I'll volunteer
Oh,
next time.
one thing I
I'll just pass it.
The one thing I did want to mention, I mentioned at the chamber community breakfast the other day too. I've been working, Oakland County is getting federal dollars through them for a family resource center. I think CJ's on the meetings with me from the township. Jack has him kind of representing there. Carolyn Kraus from the county, as well as the EMS folks. And then Common Ground is a nonprofit that does resource for families out of Pontiac. They're probably going to be the ones running the resource center. We have a location picked out. There were several areas downtown that were looked at. Parking and some sense of anonymity and outside space kind of pushed a lot of those off the radar. There's one that's being contemplated now that I don't want to say where it is because it wasn't approved yet by the federal partners. They have an issue with it, but I think there was going to be a meeting last week that they were going to maybe get that issue taken care of. But hopefully soon, within the next 30 days, that resource center can be getting open, and it's planned to be open for about a year. Just art therapy, other counseling, kids go to hang out, similar, you know, it's an outdoor space that might be helpful as well as indoor and resources and things like that. So hopefully that's coming soon. This Wednesday, that group that I've been meeting with the county folks are meeting with one of the private entities that have been helping them through conjunction with the Legacy Center. We're meeting with them Wednesday or Thursday at 3 p.m. They're kind of looking to do the similar provide resources to family on a continuing and ongoing basis. So we're meeting with them Thursday to make sure and coordinate that they're aware of what we're doing, we're aware of what they're doing. Mostly because some people aren't aware that some of the stuff is going on and because it's not ruled out yet. And we want to make sure that's aware. We, federal dollars, through the county, of course, will have our red tape and things that we must do where that private group can, do as they wish, be nimble and make their quick decisions. But we're going to at least meet with them this week and compare notes, make sure we all are aware of each other. So, other than that, that's about all I have. Other than thank you again for your confidence and revisiting my review. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Terry?
Well, if anybody's interested in the statistics, Chuck spoke for about between 26 and 30 minutes in total tonight. So we were very generous.
Yeah.
And I know he had a lot to say, but I just wanted to echo what, I forget your name, but Jenny said earlier. You truly are the best council that I've ever worked with, and you guys do an awesome job, and I just really had to bite my tongue because I really didn't accept what he was saying, and I'm glad I wasn't allowed to speak because it wouldn't have been nice. But the only other thing is there's a lot of signatures I need from Allison and Kelsey after the meeting, so don't go anywhere. I have to update all of the bank information again, and it's just housekeeping stuff, but I need to get it back to them. So
Yeah, not a problem.
don't want to miss the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Schneider, it's the first time I've encountered him, and he's worn his welcome with me, so I will use my gavel in the future.
Thank you.
There used to be a timer up here.
Yeah. Mr. Davis?
I have nothing.
Okay.
I could say a lot about Mr. Schneider.
Yeah.
There was a little clock timer or something.
Right there, this little one.
Yeah.
Is it over there?
Council comments, I want to thank Dayton City Council for the chocolates and
Yeah, that was very nice.
so, yeah, it was very nice of them if they're watching, thank you.
Maureen?
I have nothing.
Nothing? Ross?
I do have something, and I'm sorry, I know it's a long meeting. I just want to be on the record. I think over the last, week, maybe a month, there's a lot of different approaches that we can take to looking at a lot of these topics, and I really want to either encourage people or just remind people how I look at things is by putting people first. Obviously, there are big financial components, but looking at accessibility and where everyone's at, I think, a lot of us are very lucky to be where we are, but not everyone has the same access to resources, whether that be in regards to the rental or lighting or just all the different things that we're trying to do, and really trying to look at the folks that are the most disenfranchised. I think that we can help the most. And it's easy for me to say I can go and pay this amount or this amount or this. That's just not the case for a lot of people. But those people should still be welcome in our community. And I think that's important to note. And it's not just from tonight by any means. There was just a lot of stuff happening over the last month, and I just wanted to encourage everyone to go back and look at it from that lens. Obviously, we have to be careful with money. That's never going to go away, but if you have the funds and you can make adjustments and make things work, to look at the broad spectrum of folks in our community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nelson?
No, I'm looking forward to continued conversations about rental inspections, but I just want to say happy International Women's Day. This is an all-women council. This is I love working with you ladies. It's a pretty cool. It's a cool place to be. So I appreciate all of our thoughts and how we are able to have our conversations and have constructive conversations without. We have come from different places, so I appreciate that about you guys. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Two quick things. One, Nicole Edwards is watching. I don't know if you're still on here, Nicole, or not, but she is going to be watching our council meetings so she can put more information out on social media. So having her directly involved in that way will obviously give her a lot of content for that. She posted our agenda, which was great, and a couple of us were able to share it just to get the word out. It's really important that the local community knows what we're doing here every, month, and if you don't, there's really no way to find out about it unless you know to go on a village website and you know what that website is and you know where to look and see that something's coming up. And so I know we all want to be, I think we're all very transparent. It's just, the method of communication, we want to broaden that. And so Nicole's going to help us with that. So if you have any council members have any suggestions for her or content ideas for social media or other mediums of communication, feel free to email her at her village email. She's definitely open to any suggestions. And we can work with Joe on that also, just kind of coordinating everything to make sure we're all on the same page. And then I just want to congratulate our councilperson Ashley Ross on 40 Under 40 for Oakland County Executive. She was the class of 2022 this year, so it's a big honor and well-deserved. You have a lot more going on than what we see you do here once a month on Tuesdays, so thank you and congratulations.
I've been nominated for 40 Under 70.
Yep. So, with that, I move to adjourn at
Support.
9:28. All those in favor say aye.
The one person in the room that should be happy is the young man in the back. You got a compliment from Mr. Schneider.
That's true.
It was awesome. That
Write down
really
the
was so
date.
helpful.
Write down.
I